Memphis, 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 Memphis. Nothing but Memphis. Everywhere we go, it's Memphis. Memphis, Tennessee.
Nothing but Memphis Showboats right here on the Captain's Log. I'm your host, Brandon, aka the Captain. We got a new season, new year, new era on the Captain's Log, new co-host right over here. You may have seen him all over the UFM YouTube. He's had a couple hit shows, battling with Ace over on Polar Opposites or other various shows. He's jumping ship a little bit. I'll let him tell you more about that. But introducing the new co-host for the Captain's Log this year, Webb. How you doing, bud?
Thanks, man. I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to cover Memphis with you, do a show, get you on the screen a little bit more. We've done some insider research at the UFM, and you were voted most likable character on our shows. So I had to be a part of this, and especially it's a new era, right? It's a new era for the Showboats, and I guess we could start there, man. Talk about it. I want to know your perspective, and then I'll kind of bring the outsider perspective on what it was like being a Showboat fan, I guess, for the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, USFL, USFL year 2 or 3, we were there. And then we made it for the UFL cut. And, like you said, there wasn't much of me around last year because about halfway through the season, it was over. What were we? Well, it was tough, man. I think my last episode was one of a lot of people's favorites because I just kind of had these fun facts about the team, and they were all pretty bad. No fun facts to be found, no fun stats to hang our hat on. So it was a little rough last year, and especially when you don't have someone to like share in your misery. It's tough to be miserable on here alone. So it was a little miserable last year. I checked out. I'm sorry to the yacht club. I know my boys, Bill Alexander, and the folks over there. Uh, I know they appreciated the shows, and I appreciate them supporting. But hey, we're back this year. Webb's got a whole schedule thing, so I have to be on schedule with him. So let's get it. What was it like watching the boats from afar? You were a DC guy last year.
I was a DC guy, a Mauler fan, so I've been kind of around the boats the entire time, right? A Bandit fan, or I was a Breaker fan. I've been changing all the time. I don't come at this really. I love all the A teams, honestly, but it's cool to follow a team throughout the entire season, and I look forward to this Showboat one because I think it's a like the title says, it's a new era. You got a whole new GM, and a whole new coaching staff, and it just seems we'll talk about the moves and all that. There's a lot of guys that I'm familiar with, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, it's just a new era. So from an outsider, this is awesome. This is a perfect fit because it kind of covering an XFL team last year as a USFL guy. It was rough at the beginning. I know we're supposed to be a one happy family, but it was rough at the beginning. Because I was like, man, I love the guys that, especially the ones that went through the dispersal draft and all that, and they just changed
USFL on top.
Troy Williams, right? Troy, like my boy was Troy Williams. He's always been my boy, and he goes to Memphis, and I'm supposed to be rooting against him as a DC fan. You know what I mean? And it felt awkward, out of place the entire time. So I'm just glad to be on the right side, not the Brahma side, right? We're shouting out Josh this early.
Shout out the bullpen. Well, see, like you had a good connection with the Maulers and a lot of those players. I know they invited you up to camp with them and stuff. And it wasn't Boogie. Boogie was in DC at first, wasn't he? And then I think they released him. So
yeah, they didn't keep one guy from the dispersal draft, so it was like a useless method, I guess. But
you tried.
All right, man. First waves. We're gonna start our show on first waves. Because we're a boat show.
Yeah, Webb's big segment guy, guys. We got listen, we got some structure around here. Okay, we got structure around here. We're a real show now. All right, we're gonna stay on track. No rambling, except for sometimes.
Yeah. First waves. The big news, obviously, was this. We have the schedule now. Everyone's been crying for the schedule since Thanksgiving. I would say it started ramping up a lot, especially towards Christmas. But we get it on January 2nd. On the day of the Sugar Bowl. What are your thoughts as a boats guy of how it's kind of split up with home and away, though? I know it's pretty it's 5-5. You really can't do a ton with it, but
yeah, it's even. It's pretty even. Finishing home, right? Those are home, right? The
Yep.
yellow ones,
Yep.
yeah. So finishing out at home is always cool, especially if we're hot at that time and get a couple more fans to come out. Especially that Birmingham. It could be, you know, the only real threat I think is Michigan. Houston and Memphis were both, the lower dogs on the totem pole
Yeah.
until proven otherwise. So
Yeah.
Birmingham's Birmingham, but yeah, finishing at home, I like that. Friday night games, we got what, three
Yeah.
Friday night games?
Yeah. None in
So
Memphis,
they're all
but
on the road.
um, that my thing when I see the schedule is having Michigan 2 times in the first 4 weeks. That's going to set the tone because I think everyone agrees with you. It's Birmingham, Michigan, and then the other two. So you got to go through Michigan first, and you're going to set the tone real early on if you're, they got a lot of guys coming back. If you're up to that capability to get that second spot in the USFL side, so I love it that you get to see Michigan 2 times, and I'll bring a little Michigan luck on this side because my team's never lost to Michigan, so. As a
That's
Mauler
awesome.
fan,
I love
yeah.
that.
But
I love that. What about
uh,
DC? DC?
DC,
Are we not counting? We're
who's
just
the
not counting the
quarterback?
DC year.
Yeah, we're not counting the DC year. That was an ugly
That
year.
was okay.
Because
All right, we're in the portal.
honestly, I loved co-hosting with Alex, but I didn't feel
Yeah, I
connected to
mean,
the
you guys
team.
were great. It was
Yeah,
a good show.
I didn't feel I feel like me and you will connect with this team and we'll have a great show. It
Mhm.
will be the whole triangle: the show,
Yeah,
the
as
co-host, and there's a bond. So, but
we'll get to, we've got some players that so.
yeah.
But the schedule, do we have? I was wondering. I didn't check. I'm sorry. I'm terrible. Do we have any of those short weeks? Where we're playing on a Sunday and then we got to turn around and play one of these Friday games? I don't think so. I know
Yeah,
there's a couple
you got
teams
the
that
11th
do.
and 16th right there. The St. Louis to San Antonio. You got 5 days in between.
Okay, there you go. So San Antonio's that Friday night game. Okay, so we got a short weekend there,
And
but
then
at least
everything
we're
else
at
looks
home.
about 6-7 days. So we should be
Again,
pretty good.
my I get sick of talking about home and away because honestly, it's all away games. We know
Yeah.
it. The Arlington hub really throws a wrench in, who gets to travel because they're on the same plane.
Yep.
We've heard players complain about it. Shout out AJ. The guys got to share the same plane. I'm sorry. It's a small league. You beat the other team up real bad. Yeah, it's going to be awkward on the plane. Hopefully no one gets into fights, but it's a little league. Okay. It happens. So the home and away thing, it doesn't really matter too much. It's hard to get a real good gauge on who's got a home field advantage, who doesn't. No one really does besides St. Louis and DC. So
Yeah. There's 2 teams, and Memphis is one of them, that doesn't ever play in Arlington. Right? So you got 10 road games in my mind. I know you
well,
got the
okay,
fans, but
yeah,
so there's only I think it's Memphis and I want to say it's Michigan don't play in Arlington. So those 2 teams
okay,
are
yeah.
basically
Didn't
on
even
the
know
road
that.
all 10 games. Because
Yeah,
the
that's crazy.
XFL, everyone plays Arlington in Arlington, and then there's 2 from our
Yeah,
conference. So we're just not one of those teams. But
interesting.
so you talk about I want to have segments and organize and all that. You guys,
Yeah.
you guys have a very active Facebook group and a lot of supporters.
Oh,
If I had to power rank the 8 fan bases, Showboats are in the top half of people that are active and always talking about it. Maybe not the attendance numbers. We'll go there someday.
yeah.
But I'm saying just pure number, their presence online. So I I think we should have a question of the week. What do you think, Brandon?
Oh, okay, yeah. Like you said, Yacht Club is very active on Facebook. Bill Alexander, he runs a tight ship over there. The true captain of the Yacht Club. Love that guy. He sent me this flag right behind me. He's always at the Showboat games, selling all kinds of Showboats merch. They even presented him a captain's wheel. I think Moose did. Because he's, he is captain of the Yacht Club. So anytime I, got my stolen valor on here, I shout out my boy Bill because he's the true captain.
So the question of the week from Meredith Moisers, if I mispronounce, I'm sorry. Why no night games for Memphis this season? Are we still in a learning curve? I'm going to pass it off to the original captain, the guy that was the first guy on YouTube to say, "Hey, I'm a Showboats guy." He put on. I don't know if you guys remember that episode. He had the change of clothes and everything.
That was crazy. That was
So,
good
what do you
times.
think about the no night games in Memphis?
I get it. It sucks. I don't think last year we had any night games at home either. So that was a big complaint as well, especially 11 a.m. kickoffs. Those are brutal. Uh, but no night games this year makes a little bit of more sense. I can stomach it a little more. I heard someone else talking about this. The stadium's under reconstruction. They're getting renovated. They got a lot of stuff going on. So do you really want that to be the showcase? You know what I'm saying? I think it was Army I was watching, or some Northwestern, somebody I was watching, and their stadium was under renovations, and it was just the other sideline was just not even existent. So it's already a weird look in Memphis in that big old bowl with, let's face it, not a lot of attendance, but even more so, I'm sure more people on Twitter and talking heads would have something more to grab onto. Like, oh man, look at these guys. They're playing in a stadium under construction. Like, just adds more fodder to the we don't want another football league for some reason, people. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
But I do get it for this year.
yeah. I would put 100% because I think all the other teams have at least one night game home.
I think so, yeah.
I think it's 100% stadium construction because if it's first of all insurance reasons, right? like you can't have guys that have been tailgating since 8 o'clock in the morning, to be around a construction site. You just can't have that, right? So I think that's a big liability thing for the stadium, and I think that's the lone reason why Memphis didn't get one. I think,
And I
yeah, go ahead.
and I think, obviously with a new stadium, Memphis themselves, the University of Memphis, the Fred Smith fellow that's, real big into Memphis, I'm sure he wants to show it off. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure that him or somebody from Memphis has a good little plug into the ear, into Moose, Russ Brandon, somebody like, hey man, no night games this year, but next year when we're around, we got this new stadium. It still may not be packed, but it looks brand new. Let's show it off. Why not? So I feel like we'll get at least one, probably two home game next year at night. And that's another thing I love about the Friday. I am hyped about this Friday night thing. I pretty much been screaming it since they announced that WWE SmackDown was leaving to go to, I think, Netflix or USA or something.
USA. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, as soon as you heard that, it was like, okay, Fox is losing their big time Friday night programming. It's a 3 hour time slot. Boom. Just like that, opened up. Guess how long football takes? About 3 hours. Fox has spring football. Like, it just made so much sense. And now that we're getting it, I love it. And you see the leagues pushing it very hard. So, this Friday night thing, it may get bad ratings. I hear a lot of people talking about, Friday night isn't good for sports, but you got to start somewhere with consistency. And I think this is a good step in being consistent.
Yeah, yeah. I I love the Friday night because in the middle of this, I've got kids. You know what I mean? Like I'm not out bar hopping, so like I need something to watch, especially during the summer. The kids drove me crazy all day. You know what I mean? Like they're on summer break. I just want to watch a football game sometime, and the best time is at night because it's the end of the day, and they're not trying to run around do everything. So I love the Friday night personally, and I'm used to that slot because my son is a big WWE fan, so it's perfect for me. I'm not even gonna miss it. But
Yeah. I just like big fan of the consistency level.
yeah,
If we can get Friday night laid down, it's like, hey, if nothing else, Friday night you can turn on Fox, there'll be a UFL game on at some point. You know what I'm saying? This is one thing people can hold on to. Like, Saturday and Sunday, you gotta find the game. Okay. But Friday, 8 o'clock, nothing else. UFL's on.
yeah. So the
Here
big
we go.
news. This is your boy, right? This is your third head coach in franchise history now in 4 years, right?
I love it. I love
Ken
it.
Whisenhunt was
We got
announced. Yeah, go ahead.
we get new coaches like you get new teams. So
Yeah,
it's lit.
yeah, it's awesome. I like this coach a lot because from my experience in spring football, the guys that come from the Steelers, I tend to like, and I feel like the team consistency seems to work a little bit better in the spring football. Not the guys that come from the Eagles, like the last head coach, or bounce around a lot. Uh, so a little bit of Ken Whisenhunt. He played. He's a wide receiver, tight end at Georgia Tech. Then he went to the NFL, a couple stops. He's been a coordinator everywhere, including Pittsburgh as the offense coordinator and the head coach of the Super Bowl Cardinals. Do you remember him as coach? I know you're a little bit younger than me.
That's literally where I only remember him from. I remember him from the Cardinals and then the Titans for a little bit because AFC South Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So I remember him definitely on the Arizona team for sure. And fun fact, I heard the other day someone was just talking about Ken Whisenhunt for no reason. He is one of only 2 coaches that the Arizona Cardinals have kept for 6+ seasons. Dysfunctional organization over there.
Very dysfunctional. So for him to make it that far, he obviously had to have something going for him. But before
Now
he
he
was
had
with
Kurt Warner, so that helps.
well, he made that decision though. Kurt Warner was
True.
cut from the Giants, and his opening interview with Moose Johnson, he said that Kurt Warner walked in the office and said, "Let me get a shot," and he talks about developing and giving guys a shot, and it led him to the Super Bowl with the Arizona Cardinals, and no one else could say that, right?
Yeah, that was the pick 6, or was that the Santonio Holmes catch? That was the pick 6?
No, the Santonio Holmes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, the Steelers, which ironically is the
Mhm.
job that he left to go there. He was the offense coordinator for the Steelers before that. So I'm excited because he's an offensive guy. I know you guys have had a few offensive guys here, but I think he's a little bit more
A lot of Steelers
balanced.
offensive guys too. 2 out of 3 Steelers offensive guys, former.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think he's more balanced on offense than the other 2 guys, and I think that works in this league. Skip's
When's
a
the last
perfect
time he
example.
coached? Do you know?
Well, he was with Alabama with Nick Saban in 2023.
Oh, okay, he went to the old Nick Saban, get your career back on track football
He
camp.
was with Penn State for 3 years before that, and before 2018 he was with the Chargers. So that's the last time in the NFL. But he was the offensive analyst for the last 2 spots in pretty big programs. So actually, he was working with his son-in-law, Zach Mettenberger. The old quarterback for LSU and the Titans quarterback.
Yeah.
It's now his son-in-law
Oh, yeah.
at Alabama. And the reason why I say that is because the coaching staff, man. The coaching staff. We're going to start with the offensive staff, man. Who do you have any idea who he's bringing out? Because I really don't.
I have no clue. I don't know nothing about Whisenhunt, to be honest with you. I mean, like I said, I asked when the last time he coached. I know, of his coaching career, but like I don't know his tree, I don't know if he'll maybe surprise us either way. Cause like some of these old guys, like we just heard, Skip Holtz with old Zach Potter, the newest success story of the UFL. It's like you could do something crazy like that and just hire a guy who is brand new to it. Or, I'm sure Ken probably has plenty of offensive guys he's got in mind to bring with him. So no clue on offense. Since he's already an offensive guy, though, I'm sure he'll be maybe calling plays.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell yet whether the offensive coordinator will be just like a title or whether he'll actually be a coordinator.
Yeah. I for some reason I think it's going to be Zach Mettenberger. I have no inside source, nothing like that. I just think he went to Alabama to coach with his son-in-law, and I think the only job that took him away from there really, well, Nick Saban left, but is give his son-in-law a chance to be an OC possibly, which he would still have control on it. I really believe that he's going to be very heavily Flip called plays last year, right?
I believe so, as far as I know.
And so did Haley, right? Or did Haley have an OC?
Yeah, as far he had an OC too, but as far as I know, they were both play callers.
Okay, all right. So it'd be interesting to see if you go 3 years in a row with this team, with the head coach playing call.
Yeah. we'll find out. The NFL is kind of seeing it right now. It's kind of getting back to that. Hey, let's just get a leader of men. You know what I'm saying? Just he can bring in an OC, he can bring in a DC, but first and foremost, we need, the big buzzword. But cliches are cliches. The culture. Culture matters. So as long as old buddy can bring in a culture, the OC and the DC can just like fall into place after that.
Yeah, I agree with you. So we'll just skip over the DC because you kind of gave you an answer for that one already. The front office alignment. So he's never worked. If you watch his presser with Johnson, I know it's a month old now, or a month and 2 months old,
Mhm.
right? Something like that. He's never worked with Jim Manos. Jim Manos has worked with Russ Brandon with the Buffalo Bills, but he's never worked with it. How quickly do you think that matters in a league like this? Really, I guess that they don't have
I mean,
experience. Because Skip
it
and
feels
Potter
like
didn't, right?
most. Yeah, it feels like most of the head coach GM combos that we've seen in spring football really don't have a connection. I mean, not that I can think of off the top of
Yeah,
my head. Like, I don't know what the Bowler and Becht connection is. I have no idea. Um, if Roughnecks, I know CJ has at least a friend of a friend that was that new Lionel Vital because I
yeah,
remember Ace talking about it.
yeah,
So it doesn't seem like, and then none of these teams have owners, so it's like, does Ken really have a choice on who GM is?
yeah,
I'm sure he has some say, but like you said, if this guy worked with Russ, it seems like this might be Russ maybe thinking he's throwing Ken a bone, like, hey, I knew this guy, I worked with him, and Ken respects Russ's decision, and here we are. Like, I don't know much about the guy. I assume he was a scout somewhere at some point
yeah,
doing some kind of scouting. So
yeah.
scout away, brother.
Actually, just listening to you, it almost seems like Russ Brandon makes the calls on the GM side, while Moose makes the calls on the head coach because Moose has a history with Whisenhunt,
Yeah,
and then somehow merge them
yeah.
together. So it's actually a pretty cool idea to think about because Brandon was a GM.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I
Or
everything anything Moose is involved with,
yeah,
sign me up, brother. Okay. Everything whatever Moose wants to do, let that man do it. Okay. Put that's my president. That's my president of spring ball.
big trade. You got a new quarterback, man. Talk about the
We did.
quarterback room
We did.
last year before we go.
Kind of rotating door a little bit. We thought starting off the season we were going to be hot. We had the sensation known as Case Cookus. For some reason, there's a guy on Twitter, Arif Hassan. And he just says he tweets out Case Cookus and it gets like 30,000 impressions. And I don't know what started this or whatever happened, but I do know Case was like the only quarterback to ever get an unnecessary roughness. So maybe that's where it all started. So we had Case Cookus, led the Stars to a championship back in the USFL. He probably could have been everything Case Cookus we thought of if he had an offensive line. You know, Everything kind of begins and ended with the offensive line on this team. It didn't really matter who you had at quarterback. Case already broke his leg like a year ago, so he was probably not as mobile as he was before that, I would assume. We had Troy Williams, who came in relief of Cole or Case Cookus for a while, and he did okay. He was a more mobile guy, so there were a little more excitement with Troy because you felt like maybe he could do something, maybe he could extend a play and make something fun happen. But at the end of the day, the offensive line just kind of let us down.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing in this league is offensive line versus the defensive lines
Tough.
are so much better than the offensive lines. And Moose talked about it
Yeah.
this week. I don't know if you heard the show. Moose talked
He
about that.
always, every
Yeah,
time he can, he brings up, offensive line trenches.
yeah,
That's where we see, I think he even mentioned like NFL guys are calling him like, hey man, we would love to get this guy into you guys' league, get him some extra reps. We think he could develop.
yeah,
So I'm sure there's some weird little like NFL things where they're like, hey, go ahead and send that boy to Birmingham. We've seen what Skip Holtz is doing over there. Go ahead. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So, send that boy over to San Antonio. Wade Phillips will get him right. So hopefully they can say that about Memphis after this year.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if it came from the XFL or the USFL side. Um, the teams that won always had the best offensive line. It's just as simple as that. The Stallions have always had an offensive line. When the DC Defenders went 9-1, they
Oh,
had a
good.
great offensive line. Like you win and lose on the offensive line. I don't care. It does matter, obviously, with the quarterback, and we're about to talk about our new quarterback. But
Brahmas.
at the
Brahmas
end of the
last year
day,
that made it to the chip.
yeah, at the end of the day, Dormady, Troy Williams on the roster right now. It doesn't matter how good they are. Like you could put Tom Brady there, but if you watch Tom Brady back in the day when he was getting hit, he was just off. You know what I mean? And the offensive line was not being effective. He was terrible, especially if you hit him early. But that's a whole nother show, the breakdown of Brady. But talk about Quentin Dormady. What do you know about him?
You know, it was a very, they announced the trade. This happened on October 29th, right around Halloween. We traded away Jordan Ferguson. I really like Jordan Ferguson. I thought he was a very good pass rusher. When he came on, I think he was with us in the USFL, I believe, and then he made his way to the Seahawks after that, after only playing in like 3 or 4 games. So, he was always good for a couple sacks. Definitely I hate losing a defensive lineman, but to get a quarterback for it, it's tough in this league when it's got to be a player for player trade. We're not really trading
Yeah.
draft picks or anything. So it was a very, to be honest with you, just like meh. Hey, there's Quentin. All right, cool. I like the guy. I got nothing against him personally, but he's Quentin Dormady. He's been on spring teams before. He's never been the dude in a spring league, so it's it is what it is. Hopefully we bring in a little more competition. Personally, I see the St. Louis Battlehawks of the world doing their cool things in the quarterback room with, guys like Max Duggan. The Brahmas shipped this guy out of town because they got a big name, Kellen Mond. Stallions got Matt Corral back. So those are names. Those are pretty good names, even though they may not have been in spring football long, like Matt Corral's. Max Duggan and Chevon Cordero had never played in spring ball, but the excitement around him is there. Quentin, I feel like we know what Quentin is. I feel like there's maybe a book out on Quentin at this point. So if we can get him an offensive line, guess what? He's going to be good. If he's getting sacked on his back all the time, he's going to be bad. So let's see what big boys we bring in, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, I agree. I think you need. Oh, obviously they're going to add at least one more quarterback before camp. I'm kind of happy that they haven't made that move like some of the other teams where their room is filled already, because I think some of the NFL guys can come in and compete. Personally, I'm a big fan of Troy because his mobility, and I've seen him up close, personal, win and be a successful game manager. And I know that's a term that people are like, oh, he's just a game manager. But you watched the Boats last year. You would love to have a game manager, a guy that, because there's a game to manage. Otherwise, you're just getting just a bum. So I think Troy's
we won't
been
argue
a winner.
about that, my friend.
Yeah, I think Troy is a winner, but I think this Dormady pickup could be good because he started at Tennessee, so he's got to have some natural talent, right? Like you don't just walk into an SEC school. He transfers because of playing time, whatever, and finish up Central Michigan, which is a pretty good little MAC school that usually,
JJ what?
No,
Central
JJ
Michigan?
Watt's Texas
Or
Wisconsin.
no, it's Central Michigan. AJ Brown? Somebody went to Central Michigan.
Yeah,
But go ahead.
AJ Brown. Yeah,
AJ
Brown did. But
Antonio Brown, sorry.
Antonio Brown. Yeah. I knew we were going on that. But I think Dormady could be very talented, and if he's centered into an offensive system that fits his style and an offensive line, I think the wide receivers are here, and we'll get into it in a second. I think you have enough dogs on the wide receiver where Dormady is effective if you just can protect him. So.
Yeah. I'll be completely fine with a game manager. If we can win on defense, I'll take it. If we can win on offense, I'll take it. If we win by special teams, I'll take it. W's are W.
It's almost like we made up these slides because we just talked about all three of these, right? The wideouts are back, the QB battle, and the offensive line competition. So when you watched the Boats a lot closer than I did, offensive line, would you say it was all 5 guys were letting guys through, or was it more like the tackles? Because as a DC Defender fan, the interior was pretty solid, right? A couple guys got shots in the NFL. It was just the tackles, so the edge rushers were able to get to the quarterback and tee off and tee on him. Was that the problem, or was it more the entire line kind of taking turns on who's going to leak?
It kind of felt like everyone was taking turn because I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I know we had a couple, at least 3 or 4 different offensive line combinations throughout the season, whether guys were getting hurt or whether it was just moving a guy from center to guard or guard to center, trying him at a different position. I know we had Alec Lindstrom get an NFL chance. He was an interior lineman for us. It felt like our tackles were getting beat pretty frequently. I'm not the biggest, I ain't big on the offense. I don't know whose job is who. It's 5 dudes trying to work together. It's very hard. I try not to give the boys too much heat because, they let up 1 sack a game and they're the worst player in the world. So it's a tough job, I get it, but it did just feel like a unit thing, we never had a consistency there, we never had the same 5 guys, it felt like every single week, trying to become one. There's not a big training camp, there's not a big lead up to this, so your offensive line has to get clicking, and they gotta get clicking quick.
Yeah. We talked about I agree. I think if you're saying you didn't have the same 5 for all 10 weeks or a majority of the week, think about the Stallions for the
There are
most part. For the most part, especially the second half of the season when they got going, they had the core offensive line together, and they were successful able to run the ball and be able to protect the quarterback. We talked about quarterback. Do you have a name out there that's out there in the non-UFL world, not NFL entrenched quarterback that you think would have a good fit with the Ken Whisenhunt? I know I throw you on the spot here.
It's It's like just give me an athlete, at this point. If nothing else, give me just somebody that, when I see the signing happen on Twitter, I can go look up their highlights and I see like a mover. I see somebody that scouts are like, hey, this guy's got good talent on his legs. He can throw a ball good enough. You know what I'm saying? That's all we need in the UFL. I need you to run around a little bit, make some plays happen, throw a ball good enough. So there's no names in particular that come to my head. I'm not the biggest college football guy, and what college football I do watch is the main screen. So I don't see some of these smaller schools that the UFL is kind of going after, which I love. I love the small schools. I love what the UFL is doing, but those games are hard to catch on TV. Sorry, boys.
Yeah. A name that I would watch out for is Sean Clifford, Penn State. He's on the practice squad for
Packers.
The Packers.
Yeah.
He's behind. They traded for Malik Willis, who's young. They have Jordan
Yep.
Love, who's young. Magoo's been in and
They
out.
got Alex Magoo at wide receiver.
They got Alex Magoo. But the reason why I say Clifford is because he's not getting film. Obviously, he's moved back in the depth chart, and he worked with Ken Whisenhunt at Penn State.
Okay.
So that's the reason why I just have a feeling the last guy in this room is going to have a strong tie with Ken Whisenhunt.
I like it because Clifford. I mean, well, I remember when Magoo went to Green Bay. I think Clifford was his main competitor because
Yep.
I think they just drafted Clifford a couple years ago, didn't they?
Yep. He,
So Magoo got beat out by Clifford, and people are like, "What the hell are you doing?" But clearly Magoo is a spring quarterback. Clearly just whatever he does just does not impress NFL people, I guess. So
yeah.
put him at wide receiver and run scout team.
New face in offense. So the way I looked at this show is that you were the offensive guru out of the two of us. I know defense a little bit better.
I try. Offense is a little easier to digest for me.
I understand. We got 3 names
Defense,
here.
I see guy go get ball.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Any names that stick out right here? These are 3 offensive guys. I just chose random 3 guys. Any names that really stick out for you?
I'm pretty interested in this Kyle Sheets fellow. 24 years old, out of Slippery Rock. First team All American. Had, just he's 4th all time at Slippery Rock in receiving yards, 3rd all time in touchdowns. Straight athlete, got this RAS score, the relative athletic score. You'll see little graphics for it for when guys draft season comes around. He's got a 9.4 out of 10. that's ranked like 190 out of 3,000 people since 1987. So athlete. He did kick returning, he did special teams, kind of it just seems like a guy that's willing to do whatever to help the team. And that's the kind of guy I like. Small school guy too. We just talked about that. UFL is the league of opportunity. This is one of those classic overlooked looking guys. Could play a variety of positions, could be a little bit of Taysom Hill gadget guy, could be a returner, could be special teams gunner, who knows? But I just like what he brings. I like the athlete that he is.
I agree with you. I think he's a very good talent. Ryan Johnson, and the only reason why this name sticks out for me a lot is that obviously me and you are kind of locked in with the spring football, and we've got a roster guru, right?
Love that, man.
Mr. Thorne, right? Mr. Thorne, and
Shout out Nick.
Johnson got signed, and he moved to the top of the guard depth chart. So with two other guys, he automatically removed, and it's not like he just puts new signings at the top of the depth chart. He kind of fits it where he sees them. And for Thorne to say that Johnson jumps everyone that already, that's a good sign that we've got a dog here on that. So that's
I am fully behind that reasoning. Dude is I think he's at Towson right now, college, trying to be like a scout or something. So I trust his eye for talent at this point. Shout out Nick Thorne.
Yeah. Your guy. This is
I
your
like
guy.
this one.
This is the one that you
I
want.
do like this a lot.
I'm gonna give you the big screen.
We got Dion.
Go for it.
Oh, here we go. Big head.
Yeah.
DeAndre Torrey, 26 years old, North Texas, mean green. Look at those cool jerseys. North Texas was one of the first teams I wanted to play as in Dynasty. I like that green, good Texas recruiting area. But DeAndre, he was a beast in high school in Mississippi. He's only 5'7". Okay, so obviously 5'7". That's not what too many. I think he's like 180 pounds listed, maybe smaller than that. He's not a big dude by any means. He had to go to JUCO. He played at Mississippi Gulf Coast College, dominated there, and averaged 144 yards a game. He was second in the nation. Again, I'm not sure if that's JUCO or just in the nation overall, but he was second in the nation in rushing on somebody's list. Okay, that's pretty damn good. Got signed to UNT after that. Played 4 years there from 2017 to 2021. Two-time second team all conference player. He actually did a stint in Michigan with the Panthers in the USFL right before we turned into the UFL. He only played in the final game of the season, only recorded like 2 rushes. So he didn't get to put out a lot of film, but for some reason, the Philadelphia Eagles were like, okay, that's enough. They took a shot on him, signed him for a couple weeks, released him before the season started. I think right after preseason. I think he spent like maybe 2 weeks for like a preseason game or two. So he hasn't been on a team. I don't think he's played a snap of professional football since then. He was with the Vegas Vipers, drafted by him in 2023 in the XFL, and then he signed with the Argonauts in the CFL. But they said he was placed on the suspended list, which, like the UFL, isn't really like you got suspended for like bad stuff. You just didn't show up. So I guess he didn't show up to the CFL, but I like him. I like the potential. 26 years old, still pretty young. Doesn't have too much wear and tear. We saw Darius Victor kind of excel in this league at one point, being the offensive player of the year at a smaller frame. So I think this is like a Darius Victor, but without all the bowling ball, much quicker. I think his first play at North Texas was a kickoff return for a touchdown. So another guy that's got special teams experience as well. That's going to pay out great if he ever wants to make it to the NFL. Put him on kickoff return, put him on coverage team, whatever. So another guy kind of like Sheets that I mentioned that seems like he'll do whatever it takes and seems like he'll be good at running.
Yeah. I this guy has always showed up on, like, if you Google small school guys that have like in draft prospects or anything, his name has always popped up for me over the last 3-4 years, like guys that are available from small schools, and he's always popped up. So I'm excited to see him in this offense. So that was a good call on your part. Defense. Man, this got to
Oh,
feel. This
man,
got to feel to me. This got to feel, man.
that's interesting, ain't it? That's
Yeah.
interesting.
So the three guys I could put on here: Boogie, Eli Walker, and Isaiah Green Bay. I'm gonna give you the first go because I could talk about these guys to endlessly, but I'm gonna let you go first.
Green Bay is a guy I don't know much about. I think you know him obviously. All these guys a lot better. You couldn't find a no Green Bay Mauler shots.
You only
You
played two
wanted to make
games,
it seem
man.
like maybe he wasn't a Mauler. I thought so. Okay, I thought
Yeah,
that's what it was. I thought he didn't
yeah,
play much. But Boogie and Eli, Eli felt like a real snub last year that definitely should have been playing on some UFL team somewhere. I don't know, 16, 20 safeties better
yeah.
than Eli Walker, especially when a guy like I think Shalom Luwani went down early this season. Like, feels like immediately you call up Eli Walker. Like, if the fact that nobody called up Eli Walker to, come in off an injury or anything just felt crazy to me. You got Boogie over there. What more can you say about Boog? The mayor of spring football. Dude's been around for a minute. Spring football legend. I wish, ESPN commercial savant, the boy's always moving and grooving. He's always got something going on. Great for the community. One of those shark dogs. If there was no shark dog, Boogie Roberts would probably be like the number one talked about guy in the league. He's just maybe not nationally, but as far as like a community guy, like I know we got Ducky, the community legend, but Boogie embodies like a community legend. Like he's there for the fans. USFL, season one, when everybody was in Birmingham, dude was up there on the concourse playing football games with the kids, on his off days while other games were going on. So just, Boogie's a guy you root for.
Yeah. All three of these guys are great. Boogie's obviously awesome. One of the coolest things that he ever did was the birthday video that you participated in on my 40th. It was just awesome. He got all the Maulers to wish me a happy birthday and everything. That was awesome. Boogie's a class act and a leader for the team, and like you said, can connect to the community and a solid talent. Man, he's pretty good talent too. Like we talk about his
Yeah,
off-field stuff because he was one of the stars of the USFL, the behind the scenes show, and but he's very talented and should have been in this league last year. Let's be real. He should have.
absolutely.
I watched DC for
Another,
10 games. He could have played on DC's defensive line. Um, Eli
yep.
Walker should have been with the Birmingham Stallions, like you said. That's the guy on the Maulers defense from 2 years ago that every time they needed a big play, it was Eli Walker. He wasn't the Tarpley or Torrington. It was the Eli Walker that was able to pick up the fumble and run it in for a score against the Generals or a sack or something like that. So, what are you gonna say?
Eli he's the one that has a couple things in his pocket, or is that someone else?
No, that's Mark Gilbert. That's Mark Gilbert.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
Gilbert's got Joe in
Eli's
his pocket.
Eli's
That's
over the
right.
top, going to hit you in the mouth, but at the same time can
That's
intercept the
right.
ball. And then Isaiah Green Bay. I interviewed him before. He's a great guy, super tall. Yeah, I think he's like 6'5", 6'6". He's a big guy. He's wiry. He played at Wisconsin, so Big Ten football. He finished his career at Northern Illinois. He gets picked up by the Maulers. 8 days later, he's on the field making a game-winning play against the Pittsburgh Panthers. I mean, the Michigan Panthers in a crucial game. So, and he got the game ball and everything. It's just one of those guys that should have got a spot because of, first of all, being younger, higher ceiling probably, and it just a defensive end, linebacker, edge rusher type of guy that every team could have used last year. Every team, maybe outside of the Stallions, because the Stallions had like 20 of them, it seemed like. But every other team could have used an extra edge rusher, especially because, like we talked with the offensive lines, right? They're weak. Like not that they're weak, but like they're not terrible, but that's the toughest position to get together in this kind of format. And to get an edge rusher like Isaiah Green Bay, who's super huge and smart and heady and all that, and played a Big Ten football, it's not like he's obviously played big games. He could have been useful, but my player, I couldn't go Mauler though. That was my only thing because I think that
Too
was
easy.
kind of
Would have
obvious.
been
Yeah,
too easy.
that was kind of obvious. Is Jaquan Shepard because I think watching the Showboats from afar, your secondary was a little leaky sometimes when you talk about defense. I think up front,
Yeah.
your defensive line and linebackers did pretty solid. I think there's a corner or two that are pretty good. But Jaquan Shepard is kind of like an Eli Walker, man. He's 6'2". He's wiry. He had tackles. He played at Cincinnati. He's been in the NFL. He's young. I think this is a guy to watch out for, to be a star and get a shot probably back in the NFL because he's with the Raiders this past summer. So I'm really excited to see this. Of course, you got to figure out what system they're going to run, who the defense coordinator is going to be, all that kind of stuff. You need all that. But this is a guy that just seems like he could play in multiple systems. He's kind of been a hybrid kind of safety corner nickel. Plus, he's a hard hitter if you watch some of his highlights. So this is a name that I'd like to watch.
I love it. Yeah, like you said, the secondary last year. I mean, Kyrie Woods has kind of been the shining
guy.
star of that secondary, and then it's a pretty good fall off after him. And I think he plays safety for the most part anyway, kind of up and not really in the box too much, kind of over the top. So this will be good. Yeah, I like it.
So now you got Kyrie, Shepard, and Eli Walker. You got a pretty good secondary starting right there. So
Yeah, like I said, a lot to get to, a lot more signings to come. It's been lit. Shout out. I wanted to get this in. Showboats extended their free parking promotion in case you didn't know. Uh, it was going, I think, until January 1st for season ticket holders. But if you're a season ticket holder in Memphis, and if you're not a season ticket holder yet, if you purchase your ticket by January 20th, have your season tickets paid for in full, you'll get free parking for the whole year. I think they said it's like $100 value, $50 value, something like that. So, good little deal there. You're already going to the game. Why pay for parking? Why let them make you pay for parking? If you can just go ahead and get in early, it's a spring league. They need to be doing everything they can for us to get us out there. Okay.
yeah.
They want us to show up to the game. So put in the work, and they're putting in some work. I love to see it. Shout out a couple community events the boats have been at. I see the mascot every once in a while. I know he was out there on Christmas. They've posted a couple goodwill things of the boys out in the community. So we may not be seeing it on social media. I saw another podcast talk to the Brahmas, like VP of marketing or something. And he said they are still doing stuff, So he was talking about San Antonio, but I hope so for Memphis too, that there are boots in the ground in Memphis, maybe not the players, maybe not the coaches, even though we did see the coach Whisenhunt, he showed up at the Peabody Hotel, did the little Duckmaster thing. So, it's good to see the UFL trying to get out in the community, keeping the UFL on people's minds. Memphis doesn't have a pro football team, so I know it's going to be a little ugly this year, but let's get out there, boys. I know we got to cook in the sun, but Bill Alexander will make it fun. I promise.
There you go. There you go, man. Well, thank you for bringing me on to this, man. This is fun. Talk football, and I really like this team, man. I honestly, I like you got a Mauler field first of all.
I was going to say it's getting a little black and yellow over here. Huh? A little black and yellow.
And remember when the jerseys? Remember when the black and yellow came out for the Maulers, and then they both got jerseys at the same time? Everyone said they kind of look the same. They're kind of similar. So like
carbon copy.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a good vibe. So I'm excited to do this. And next time we're going to talk a little more in depth on the defense or offense. Which one you want to do?
We can probably do both, honestly. Or well, we'll spread it out. Not a lot to talk. It depends on what there is to talk about.
Yeah,
But it's tough. This far out anyway, does the roster matter at this point? So I think after Super Bowl, it's going to really get hot and heavy. Maybe we'll get an interview in before that or something before these guys get to camp.
yeah. All right, let's do it. Let's do it again
I'm ready.
soon. All right, man.
Go Boats.
Go Boats.